posted yesterday on my Instagram page, since it was Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, that I wanted to share my story, and I was somewhat overwhelmed and scared at the same time about people reaching out to me, explaining how it helped them, me telling people about my story. They were telling me about their situations and their story, and I thought it might be an opportunity for me to expand on what I went through so it could potentially help others in the same situation or who has been in the same situation. So firstly, let me just correct something I put in my post. I actually said it was 2023. It was 2024. I had a breakdown. And I don't mean I was just a little bit stressed out or having a bad day. I mean, I found myself uncontrollably crying. I was in a very, very dark place. And I'll be honest with you, it ate me away. It really did. And I kept myself from talking about it for a large period. And it wasn't until I started to open up and talk about it with friends, family, and eventually a therapist that I started to feel better. I found myself convinced that my wife was going to leave me. I looked at my son thinking he didn't love me. I found it very hard to come up with any reasons of why I existed. So let me start at somewhat of the beginning. And don't worry, it's not going to be a long-winded story, but I want to explain that it wasn't particularly one thing that broke me or sent me into that black hole. It was a combination of everything. I think just it accumulated and stacked up until it eventually broke me. Some of the catalysts that drove me to that point was, well, first off, my wife was doing extremely well in her job, and although I was genuinely very proud of her, watching her thrive and seeing her progress kind of magnified my lack of success from starting up my coaching business. I'd recently left my corporate job, which I enjoyed, but the business was going in a direction I didn't entirely agree with. I became a stay-at-home dad because my son started school and I wanted to be a present parent. And I thought I'd build a coaching business and naively thought that it wouldn't be long until I was successful in it and started earning decent money. And it took way longer than I thought, and I'm still not in a place that I would call necessarily successful as a business. I'm still trying to work on it. And although I didn't know it then, it became apparent very quickly that I never really dealt with my dad's death properly. I put a brave face on it, so to speak, and just kept on trying to convince myself I was fine, and I wasn't fine. I found myself comparing myself to others and people I knew, people online that were doing really well, seemed to be doing really successful, and there I was with no set salary, no title, and really felt myself feeling worthless. I didn't realise how much I tied my identity to what I earned until I was earning nothing. And at my lowest point, it's quite hard to describe to someone that has never experienced it, but I'd be doing something random like making breakfast, playing with my son, reading a book, and suddenly just burst into tears out of absolutely nowhere, uncontrollably. It was just something I've never experienced before. I felt completely lost. I felt like I didn't recognize who I was anymore. Like I said before, I looked at my son and just thought that he didn't love me. I thought my wife was going to leave me. And neither of those things were true, but in my head, obviously they were. And it sent me into a real dark place very, very quickly. I mean, my mind was telling me the worst version of absolutely everything going on a daily basis. And every insecurity I had was magnified by my mind telling me those worst versions of everything. Now, I say this, I never snapped at anyone, I never lashed out at anyone, I never shouted and point this dark place onto anyone else, so to speak. I think I withdrew from life, and it sent me into a real dark place real quickly and in a real scary way. And I think one of the hardest parts is I didn't want to talk about, well, in fact, I didn't even know how to talk about it at the time. not alone wanting to. And I mean, after all, being a man, you're supposed to deal with your own issues. You're not supposed to talk about your weaknesses or problems. I'm supposed to have it all together. I'm supposed to, know what to do. And if I do have an issue, just deal with it and get on with it, and it turns out I didn't know how to deal with it, and it made things a lot worse not talking about it. I really didn't want to go to the gym, and which was a strange feeling for me because I've never been in that situation, but I found myself having no energy, I had no motivation, but I'm glad, retrospectively looking back, I forced myself to, although I didn't want to at the time, because I thought if there was one thing that I could do or have control of, is my physical health, and that's mine. No one can take that away from me. I guess one of the reasons, or the key reason why I didn't want to go, is because I didn't want to be alone with my thoughts, where I was in that dark place, and it was my own thoughts that were keeping me there, and being alone made me think about them even more. But I can tell you this, it helped me. Very slowly, it definitely helped. Not overnight, not dramatically. It gradually became, I suppose, one of my key outlets for helping me think more clearly. It became somewhat the place where I could just exist. And I didn't follow a program. I didn't follow a particular set routine. I just went, lifted heavy, which would take me a second or two away from thinking those thoughts that sent me into the dark hole in the first place. I also started therapy, and I think that combination of physically moving my body as well as being able to talk to someone was the key catalyst of moving me out of that dark place I was in. And I realised something very important that I never looked at before. Being healthy is more than just being physically healthy. It's more than just being strong. It's more than just being fit. And I think for men especially, we don't talk about this enough, and we need to start talking about it. We track our macros, we optimize our sleep, we go to the gym several times a week, but we don't admit when we're struggling. We don't ask for help. We just keep pushing on until something breaks. And I broke in a big way, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and sit here and say that everything's fixed. I am very much a work in progress. And honestly, I don't know whether I'll ever go back to how I was before this happened, and maybe that's okay. But I am in a much better place than where I was. I know the signs. I know when I need to slow down, talk to someone, potentially go to the gym, or simply get out and move. It all helps. And ultimately, the reason why I made this video is I want to leave you with something that I used to believe, but my experience taught me otherwise. And that is, by pretending that everything is fine and just getting on with it meant that I was strong. It doesn't mean that at all. What is true strength, real strength, is admitting that not everything is okay and you need help. And on that note, if this sounds familiar to you, if you are carrying something that you haven't talked to anyone about, know that you're not the only one going through it. And it's okay. You're not alone, and realise that you don't have to be strong all the time. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. If anything, it's a strength. Now, if this video helped, or you're going through something similar, then reach out to me. You can comment below, DM me privately, or go onto my StanStore and book a one-to-one call with me, completely free. I'm not going to try and sell you anything or push you into a coaching program. I'm not a therapist or psychiatrist. I'm just a human being that wants to help someone who went through what I went through. It's a scary situation, and if you need to chat or an ear to speak to, I'm here for you, okay? And as anxious and hesitant as I was to make that post yesterday, and the same with this video today, if I don't open up and talk about it, then you're not going to open up and talk about it, which means no one's going to open up and talk about it, and then nothing ever gets better. So let's actually talk about this stuff. Let's not see anyone struggle anymore, and reach out if you need it, okay? Or talk to someone about it. Don't bottle it up anymore, okay? Guys, see you in the next one.